So this property was purchased in 1997, was the original purchase, and that was 398 acres. And then about 3-4 years later, a neighboring property came up for sale. That was 100 acres. So the whole property is 498 acres. So I'm very fortunate to have such a large parcel. The way it came about is that I was a landowner and still am of some property in Eau Claire County, some woodlands that just been a delight for me, a real motivator, a real way of life actually for me. I've owned that for nearly 40 years now. But early on I recognized it was something I loved to be involved with, and after I got that kind of tuned up the way I wanted, the thinning was done, some planting was done, roads were being maintained and so on, I thought, gee, I wonder if there's a larger parcel that I might acquire and have even more fun with that. So at the time when my dad was still living, we talked about doing something together, and I was able to look at these larger parcels. And by the time I actually found a piece and had an accepted offer and closed on the deal, we had a different plan. My dad and I had a little different plan, so I bought it outright. But it's about 20 miles from my home in Eau Claire. It's fairly easy to get to, and I get down here quite often, a couple times a week in the fall, and so it's been a delight to own. So I purchased the land because I knew it was in my blood. My initial purchase had worked out wonderfully for me. It never let me down. It was always fun to go to. I enjoyed working there. Financially, it was working out well for me. I maintained an interest in it. I had plenty of health, and I thought this is something I want to be involved with probably over the long term. And so I did not want to sell my original piece, but was hoping to just add on and acquire something reasonably close to home. And there were a couple of large parcels that I looked at down this way, but this one appealed to me for its diversity, its proximity, its timber value. It had a nice pond on it and a pole shed, and all the stars aligned, and this was the piece I fell in love with and bought.
What I really like about this farm is that it has such a variety and offers us many opportunities to enjoy the land. In the winter, we're out here in the snow, the frozen pond, Christmas trees, and in the spring, we're out for a new hike with the new growth. Summer, we're not out here as much, and then the fall is a big drawing card because we can have bonfires and parties and hiking and picnics. So we really use this farm mostly the 3 seasons and not as much in the summer.
People sometimes ask, what do you do out there? And it turns out that when I think about it, I'm actually spending a lot of time maintaining the roads. There's a fair amount of work to be done with correcting erosion problems. There are always tree branches falling down, entire trees blow down. The roads need mowing every year, maybe a couple times a year. So there's a lot of road maintenance to do, and there are many miles of road on this property. I don't remember how many. And so that doesn't sound very thrilling, but that is actually work that has to be done. And frankly, it gets me to all corners of the property. It's good exercise. It's easy to see that you've done something helpful, and you can see your progress. And so I actually spend a lot of time on that. But what do I really like to do? Well, part of it is to come out and be outdoors and get that kind of physical exercise. Connecting with nature has never lost its appeal. Just the bugs, the wildflowers, certainly the trees and so on. Just being here is reason enough to come out. I don't hunt, but family members do. They come out and hunt on about half of it. I lease some land out. About 85 acres of my property is agriculture land. I don't have anything to do with the agriculture. I just watch the crops grow. I am involved with the forestry and overseeing what needs to be cut when, and I love when logging is going on. It's always very interesting and satisfying. And I do have an ATV, and I make a point when time permits, to finish my day by just getting out and taking a look around. So I don't own it for that purpose, but that is part of the joy, is being able to cruise around and just see what's here.
My favorite thing to do out here on the farm is to share it with my family and my friends, whether it be hiking, having a picnic, a bonfire. We enjoy that so much. And then a new thing that's been added in the last 5 years is my grandson and my son-in-law have been hunting out here. So I have so much enjoyed hearing their stories, watching their animals that they have on their cameras, and knowing that they're out here enjoying this land as much as we do.
So there are a lot of reasons why people manage forests. It's often said that you should manage for sound forestry, but interestingly, that can take a lot of different flavors depending upon what one's objectives are. One of the things I manage for out here is diversity. So I like to have diverse, woods here and a field there and a pond here and a clearing over here and maybe just wildflowers growing over here and some hills and some flatlands, and I like that diversity, so I intentionally manage for that. But as far as doing the correct thing for the 300 or so acres of woodlands out here, I do have a formal management plan. It was written up right when I bought it. It directed me as to which areas needed attention early and which ones could wait 10, 15, 20 years. The management plan extended out as much as 50 years for parts of the farm, and I've tried to adhere to that. So I've had logging done where it was due, and there are some areas where it was sort of optional, like, well, you could do it now or you could do it later or you could do this or that. So I whittle away at some of that. But in my 40 years of owning land, we've had now 16 different logging operations, and the majority of them have been out here. And there've been hardwood clear cuts, there've been some hardwood thinnings, a couple of pine thinnings. Very little planting has been done out here, but in short, I've tried to follow the management plan. In some cases, I have to follow the management plan because we have about 140 acres in MFL, so that's required management there. But that's what we do, is try to manage the timber in an appropriate, healthy way for the forest, and it turns out that economically that supports my work out here. We have the morning session is split into 4 different field stations, and unfortunately all 4 of them show some problem areas, and so we'll be showing the problem areas in the morning and then more of the successes in the afternoon. But the first stop is a knob of mixed red and white pine. We're guessing a little, maybe 40, 45 years old, where we've tried to get some thinning done in there on 2 occasions. One, it was done kind of by hand and with some hardwood logging equipment. It was inefficient, steep hill. They just hated working in there, and we didn't get very much wood out of there. And then most recently, just this past December, while we were thinning 22 acres across the road of pine, I asked if they could take a run at the hill and thin that out. So it was all marked, ready to go. They got in there, and after getting maybe a fourth of it done, decided they just couldn't continue safely. The equipment was sliding around, and they were just not able to effectively get at the timber. So there it stands, unthinned, marked, a problem area. I don't know what to do with it, and so we're going to talk about that. Second area is a 2-acre or so pond with a nice dam. It has 6,000 yards of soil that was used to construct the dam back in the 60s. Well, the dam is oozing some, leaking a little bit, and I've got a project ahead of me to figure out what is the best way to do it and get some bids on that and so on. But in conjunction with that discussion about maintaining a pond and the hassles of owning a pond, frankly, there are some, we're going to also talk about the wildlife value of ponds and some of the vegetative cover that's in that area. The third area I think is particularly interesting, and timely is I have an area where I planted, unfortunately, some ash back about 20 years ago. It was mixed ash and conifers. And the ash, at the time, that was the thing to do. But subsequently, because of the emerald ash borer, we know that that's not the thing to have done. And it's plain and easy to see row after row where many ash have died off already. There are some that are still alive, but they're kind of weakened. They're not going to make it. And so I have this area where I have a poorly stocked stand of some nice healthy conifers and not much for hardwoods coming in, certainly nothing that's going to make it long term. So that's kind of interesting to see. And then the fourth area is where I've intentionally used some herbicide to kill some of the hardwoods on a hillside. The reason I did it is the top of the hill has a spectacular view to the south, and as the hardwoods were coming up, it was blocking that view, and I deemed the view to be more interest and economic value and delight than those hardwoods. And so I've been trying to keep that vegetative cover down, but mechanically, to do that by hand, mechanically, it's a losing battle. It keeps sprouting back, and so we've used some chemical treatment in there. And we're going to be talking some about that general principle of the hardwood management that way. In the afternoon, I'm going to go on a 2-mile hike with those who want to do that. We're going to take a circle loop through the woods on the other side of the road, and there'll be some really interesting things to see there. I think certainly different areas where there was hardwood clear cut just 2 years ago, some from about 10 years ago, and some from about 20 years ago. We'll also go along an area where I have a filter strip. It's a CRP property, 4 acres, 100 feet wide, but about a 1/4 mile long. And it's a level grassland area that's basically just growing naturally, and it's gorgeous. It has a lot of tall grasses and wildflowers and a lot of insects buzzing away in there, and it's just a wonderful sight. And we'll see another small pond back in there. I'll show some erosion areas. Show an open field where we did a little of a food plot there for the deer, and where I've just kind of kept some areas open just because they're beautiful, and they're not economic maybe, but I like them. And so that'll be in the afternoon. So I'm honored to have been named Outstanding Tree Farmer of the Year along with my wife Cindy. I would say this about that what I do out here is really not much different from what most of you are doing. So I'm managing my woods, I'm cutting some firewood now and then, I'm maintaining my trails, I plant some trees once in a while, I watch for disease, I clean up storm damage, I do some things for wildlife, some things for water quality. I have a variety of things I like to do. It's just that I've been in it so long, for about 40 years. When you do some of that kind of every year, you do educational things, I write some articles, we've hosted some field days like this. When you add it all together, it looks like a lot, and so it tallies up that I was, near the top of the list for things that have been done. But what I do is not really that much different from what you guys are doing. Certainly the quality of my work isn't necessarily any better, nor the luck that I have with the different things that I've tried. But I would also say this, that for me, not for everybody, but for me, this is a way of life. This is a passion. I love thinking about my land. I love coming out here. I don't know what I'd do for being in nature if I didn't have this property to come out and walk around and declare to be my own. It's a healthy thing to do. It's green. It's a good thing to be involved with. Financially, it's worked out fine. Different people own for different reasons, but it has never let me down. I'll come out and come home with more energy than I had when I came out here. So I'm very lucky to own property, and I hope to continue to be healthy enough to enjoy it for many years to come.
Well, I would like to say that one of the biggest joys for me as a wife is to know how much my husband enjoys this farm. And my daughter said, you play out here, Dad works out here. And my husband works so hard out here. And 30 years as an ER physician, he would sometimes come home tired and dragging. never does he come home dragging when he's been at the farm. He just is energized by it, he loves it, and he has put a lot of his heart and soul into this piece of property. So that, as a wife, is very fulfilling and very gratifying.